Yeah, but because the death penalty applied on his case, he got the best attorneys you could get.
The Murder Inc. case with the feds.
Right.
The feds weren't really able to get a conviction from
Right.
as far as Irv Gotti and Chris.
Right.
Chris. Is that what they were aiming for, or?
Yeah. So I think I can't speak to what was going through the prosecutor's head. There was other evidence in that case that wasn't introduced, namely a gambling operation that the Gotti Brothers were involved in. We asked them to put that in as part of the case. They didn't. They felt they had enough evidence, and the Gotti Brothers had Jerry Lefcourt and Jerry Shargell as their attorneys, and they're two like the best criminal attorneys in the country.
Really?
So that and not bringing in a whole lot of different evidence, I think hurt the case. But look, they beat the case fair and square, and that's it. There's not much to talk about. I know that, and sadly, not sadly, but the agent that got the case, he was just out of the academy. He had like 2 years as an IRS agent. They threw him at this big case, and he had little to no help. And I felt bad for him, but yeah, it is what it is.
May I ask what was the evidence that they didn't want to?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna hold off on that. But the evidence involves. I will say this: the evidence involves having NBA players help them gamble on games to hit the over, and communications about their gambling through wire, back and forth through two-way pagers, and then assisting this gambling operation collect debts, etc. So it's a real interesting thing. When I drop it, when I talk about it, I'll call you up and
Sure,
I'll give you the exclusive.
Absolutely appreciate that. When it comes to that, the Gotti brothers in the case, the feds. Okay, on one aspect, the feds look like okay, they lost one. Usually the feds, they don't lose cases,
Right.
People suspect feds did that to drain the Gotti's out of money, so that way they wouldn't be able to help Supreme with his case. Because at the end, Supreme had to get a what do you call those?
It was a RICO charge he was convicted of.
Right, but he couldn't even he couldn't afford a lawyer.
Yeah, but because the death penalty applied on his case, he got the best attorneys you could get. So it was a death penalty RICO case. And so when the death penalty attaches, you get special counsel. And he had some very good, very well-known attorneys. He had really good counsel. But I'll tell you this, that's ridiculous. The feds don't go after anybody with any kind of tactic like, hey, let's take all their money away so they can't help this guy. No, that's like a conspiracy. You know what I mean? That's like a criminal act if you think about it. That's kind of like acting like organized crime, They thought they were going to get a conviction. I thought, I got to tell you, I'm not a numbers guy. Doesn't interest me. The violence and interests me. The structure of the organization interests me. But ledger sheets and all that stuff, I want nothing to do with. So I wasn't really involved in that side of the case a lot. I knew who all the players were, but the feds had every intention of winning that case. But I think they lost it because of bad strategy. And they also felt that if they brought in this side of the case that I was just referring to, it was going to look like they were targeting blacks in the entertainment field. And with all the names that are involved and people that helped them win these gambling, these bets they made were famous guys. And so I think they thought that I know they said the reason they weren't going to prosecute, strike that. The reason they didn't want to bring that evidence into the case was because they felt that it's going to look like the feds are going after black people in entertainment. And I thought that was ridiculous. It wasn't my call. The evidence couldn't be put in. The evidence was pretty clear. It was memorialized on these two-way pager records. The the guy who ran the gambling operation was going to come in and testify. He actually called us and said, hey, some investigators were here and they told me if the cops come and ask about this, just tell them you don't know anything. So I think it would have really helped the case. If not, definitely make it a slam dunk win. They would have gotten some kind of, guilty verdict out of it on some kind of charge. Why they didn't do it is anyone's guess. But to deplete the funds for them to help McGriff is ridiculous. Those guys weren't going to lose their money to McGriff. They liked hanging around with him. They liked having the muscle. They liked paying homage to him. It boosted them to a certain degree as being a part of a guy from, Southeast Queens and all that. But at the end of the day, they're not going to go poor for him.
Right.
And they were making enough money where, what's a lawyer cost? A high-priced lawyer. Let's say it was $500,000. They could have tossed him $500,000. They had money back then, They had Ja Rule, they had Ashanti. They were making really good money. They had side projects they were producing and everything else. So, it doesn't make sense to me. And I was there, and I could tell you for a fact it's not true.
Understood.